And actually now on the label, we can't say like all organic anymore because we're sourcing these heirloom beans, because these small farmers don't have money to get organic certification, even though what they're doing is really great work for the earth.
Welcome to the Art of Chef. And we have, today we have Shannon coming back with us again.
You don't clap, you get punished.
Yeah, and that's right. Yeah, and then joining us, we have Eleana from Shared Cultures. Man, the crowd, the obnoxious crowd.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Eleana and you don't know what Shared Cultures is, Shared Cultures, they're a miso maker in San Francisco. I don't know if you can see it. They do small batch miso. Her and her partner Kevin, right? They make them small batch in San Francisco, and Coach Moss actually volunteers and helps them, right? And that's how we kind of got to meet each other. And now on these Wednesday mornings, Coach Moss is hired by Eleana to train her into the next 400-meter star. And I am the guinea pig that shows up to make Eleana feel better.
No.
Yes. So that, so that she knows that, there are someone way worse shape.
No, that's not true.
Than she can be.
We're the same.
No.
I think we both agree. I think he did a lot better than we thought he'd do his first day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right. Yeah. So today we actually went to Somi.
Yeah.
Right. These guys
First
discover
time?
First time,
Somi.
yeah.
First time?
They virginized them on the Somi. What do you think? It's kind of like a Japanese fusion type deal.
Yeah. I liked it more than Japanese takoyaki, actually.
Okay.
Because they had ice cream in it, and
Yeah.
it was different flavors. Like you got the ube,
Yeah.
and you got the matcha, and then you can put fruity pebbles on it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Great choice. Great choices, Shannon.
Yeah, I don't think so I lived in Japan for a year and a half. So I remember seeing these on the street or in the store, like in festivals, but I never tried one. So I think that's the first like official.
Yeah.
What's it called again?
Takoyaki.
Yeah.
Takoyaki is that's the octopus. That's on my shirt.
No,
Remember?
taiyaki.
Taiyaki.
is
Taiyaki.
fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taiyaki fish.
Taiyaki.
Yeah.
Oh, so I see. So it's a fish.
Yeah.
Okay.
But these ones were the I don't know what you call it. The dough was, I think, lighter.
Yeah, you're saying it reminds you of like the agate.
Yeah, like an
The
agate.
Chinese. Yeah.
Because I think the ones in Japan are a little bit more dense, like more cakey.
Yeah,
I
you've
feel.
both been to Japan. I've never been to Japan.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I would love to go. I would love to go with you guys.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be actually a great time.
I think
That'd
it would
be
be
fun.
great. So, I was in charge of doing a little research on you guys.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just went to your website,
Yeah.
which is great. Yeah, it looks great. You're doing a little bit of upgrading yourselves, right? You're gonna do the e-com.
Yeah, we're switching from Wix right now to hopefully Shopify. So we were going to do it ourselves, but it's a lot of work.
Right.
We actually hand built the website on Wix, but so like every few months we go in there and we modify this or we modify that, but over time it adds up, right? And so now you have the website, but we want to switch from Wix to Shopify to get a little bit more e-commerce power.
Is that most
more
of
apps.
where your business is generated by e-commerce, or?
I would say maybe 50% right now is e-commerce, maybe 45. The other half is restaurant. So restaurant and e-commerce are kind of the same. So we sell to restaurants too. So it's pretty equal. Some months the e-commerce is higher, like during November, December, holidays for sure. It's way more, or we do pop-up events. But when it's slower months, when people aren't really buying too much for themselves, like maybe April, May, springtime, summertime, then our restaurants are more, so it kind of evens out throughout the year.
Yeah. So you mentioned restaurant, like Michelin restaurant like the Shasta Wasabi over there?
Yeah. We
These
work.
guys are way bigger than I am. Yeah.
We work with a few restaurants like Californios in San Francisco.
Okay.
They have 2 Michelin stars. We work with Restaurant Nice. They have 1 star. In Oakland, there's actually Pommet just received a green Michelin star, which is really exciting because they do a lot of work with sustainability. So all of the produce actually in the restaurant comes from the farm or from farmers markets, but the restaurant itself, like the wood fire, comes from all the wood comes from the fruit trees that the owner owns. So the owner owns is part of KJ Orchards. That's their family business.
Okay.
So then all the trees, a lot of the trees from that farm get brought in to the restaurant, and they use that to power the hearth.
Oh, wow, this is
Fire the hearth, yeah.
hearth. That's the thing right now. The hearth, the every restaurant with bird song, they're talking about the hearth.
Yeah.
I have a chef coming up to cook at my gallery, and we have a wood fire oven. He's like, "Hey, can you spark that thing
Yeah.
up?" Everybody just want to work on that.
Yeah. So
Hearth
that-
is like for pizza, like would it, like
fire,
a wood fire
just fireplace,
kind
wood fire, yeah.
of. Okay.
So that's really cool, you know. And then down the street, we work with Komi. They have two stars. And yeah, you know, there's a few other like Osito. We sell koji rice to in the city, and you know, we used to work with a little bit with Sons and Daughters. One of the head chefs, he actually just went and started his own restaurant called Kiln in San Francisco.
I've heard of that one.
So so now they're buying from us. They're probably going to get a star.
Oh, wow.
In the near future. Yeah, they just opened maybe 3 months ago.
Have you eaten at any of these places? I know Nice. You guys went to Nice, right?
Yeah, I've been to Osito before. That was one of the best meals. We've been to Pommet several times. So we opened with them. So we were on the opening menu with them, and they just got their green star. So same thing with Osito. We were on the opening menu with them, and they just got their 1 star. So
Yeah. Can I go eat those places?
Can we back? What is a green star?
it used to be
Great question.
I think it used to be a clover, but you'll see the stars and you'll see a clover, but now they're calling it a green star, I think. And it's just sustainability. So, you know, you practice, you know, you're either buying really local, you're practicing no waste, just like everything you're doing in the restaurant embodies, you know, practices good for the earth. So like, for example, like at Pommet, you know, they're using the wood from their own orchard, things that maybe fallen branches, things that you wouldn't normally use.
Like
You know,
discarded product. they're finding
discarded
use
stuff.
for.
Yeah. Even with Pommet, when they first started, you know, they were telling me like, whatever misos you guys have the most of, we want to use that. They have like they use our miso in the ugly mushroom pasta dish. And it's most of the time it's mushrooms that, you know, you go to the farmer's market, a lot of the mushrooms, they get kind of tossed around a little bit, maybe the bottom. They're still really great mushrooms, but aesthetically not so pleasing. So they try to source as much of that stuff. Great quality coming from great farms, but just not as aesthetically pleasing. And they buy that, and then they use a lot of that in their food. So a lot of really great things that, and like also connecting like community, you know, they use very local things, not going too far to source ingredients, because going back to, you know, your footprint and, you know, what are you contributing to the community sort of thing. So they just got recognized for their work.
And how's that judged? Like they have someone that comes in and kind of.
I'm not sure. You know, I think the other place I know of that has the clover is Harbor House in Elk, and they are 2 Michelin star restaurant. One of my favorite restaurants. And for them, because they're in the middle of nowhere in Elk, it's crazy. Like there's no farmers
Elk,
markets.
like a town?
It's in town. It's a town right by the coastal side in Mendocino, and there's no amenities there. You know, like there's no farmers market. There's no like really great grocery stores. So the only way for them, their whole ethos is they only source things in their community. So they have a little farm nearby that they raise some cattle. they grow some vegetables, but a lot of the fruit, maybe they have neighbors they know in their community that they buy from, or they go forage. A lot of the people that work there, their job is to forage things the day before, like the morning before going into work, into prep.
Oh, wow.
Like some people have to go get the lichen. Some people have to go forage mushrooms. Some people have to go and get the seawater from the ocean and bring it back. They even make their own salt there. It's really crazy,
Okay.
that this is like very sustainable. It's like everything they're doing is very local. It's from the source,
Yeah, from this from what you just mentioned, there are two things that I can really highlight, that I really want to highlight, is that one, you guys practice the same philosophy with your miso. You guys want to source locally, and you guys are willing to use like the uglier stuff, to brew like the the not so good looking stuff to make the miso. And secondly, you guys started as foragers, you and Kevin, right? That's how you guys fell into this koji thing. So go ahead and can you tell us about that?
So, we started actually for the whole reason why this company got started was because we were finding a lot of mushrooms, and then you don't know what to do with things that you find. And then you start reading about preservation, and then you can only give away so much and dry it for salts and things like that. So we read about koji, and koji is a fungi that's used to ferment things for almost 3,000 years. So we figured, wouldn't it be funny if we fermented fungi with fungi? And actually the morel miso, we're on like batch 4 or 5 now, and that's
delicious, by the way. Yeah.
So this one is the miso that we've batch 5 on that one. So the newest one that's coming out, we're actually sold out of this. We only have maybe 24 jars, and we're actually saving it. We're going to apply for the Good Food Award with this one. So it's like a consumer packaged good kind of award that goes out to artisans. But you have to apply. So we have 24 of those left. So we're actually saving this batch because it ferments for 8 months, and we sold out of it. But we have a new batch coming up in November that we'll pull, and it ferments for 8 months. So it's like once we sell it, we can't really just make more. You have to like be 8 months in advance.
Can you taste the difference between the batches? Like first batch, like seasonal, like is there any taste differential between any of that?
I think it's
stuff?
very, very little. We try to make it as consistent as possible. Like everything we do, we write it down. Like, okay, we're going to cook the mushrooms for this amount of time. But every year, the mushrooms might be a little bit different, or, everything is so, it's just little things that make it different because there's no GMOs or anything, right? There's no control over like each batch of mushrooms, where they're coming from.
How big of a batch are you making? For example, like these more like,
like 400 pounds, 400 pounds, 400 or 500 pounds per batch.
And how many out of 400 pounds, how much do you yield? Like, so do you yield all the poundage back, or is there like
you yield almost all of it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
good.
Great. That's great. No waste.
Yeah, there's no waste. And that's the beautiful thing about fermentation is actually there's no waste to it. So it's funny, like we just got a new kitchen recently, and we're signing up for the garbage bins. And then we're thinking, we actually just want the smallest one because we don't even produce any waste, because there's no waste with what we're doing. We calculate everything by the recipe. So based on how many, like the mushrooms usually are the limiting factor, like whatever you can source the least amount of things on, you can just adjust the recipe and just make enough for what you need.
I mean, you guys, the recipe is great because every one of these ones you can taste every ingredient you name. Like like there's some stuff is like is a whatever honey glazed maple miso.
You're like, where's
and then you're like, you taste like regular miso.
Oh, I know. I just bought one the other day.
Use your imagination.
Yeah.
I just bought one the other day. It was a fig miso.
Okay.
It's from Japan. I can't remember what brand it is, but I try all the miso so I know, like how people are making it. But I didn't taste any fig. Like I closed my eyes and I was like trying to even imagine
it's
it.
Like wine.
And I was just like, I can't taste anything. Right. And so then it's also really salty. So our misos are not that salty.
Yeah, no, it's not.
So you can taste the flavor, and you can always add salt, right? So
and you also have tamari and soyu. These for like number 1 reserve soyu. Can you
Oh yeah,
Shannon,
so I
can you
have.
take a
I
look
have.
at that?
Well, this one's the. I don't know where the lentil quinoa shoyu is, but these are just the. This is the tamari, and then we have a lentil quinoa shoyu.
So she says out of 400 pounds, you get 30 of these.
Yeah, that's it.
And
and some of them even less. This one ferments for 9 months, so I can't get 30.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like some of the batches, I only ferment for 3 months. I get 10, 15.
So the longer the ferment, the
Yeah,
more
because
of
it
the
gets
tamari.
pressed out
I see.
more. You know, so the longer time yields more water weight. You know, so
and you're gonna start maybe down the road using a little tincture.
maybe
You know,
yeah, we
'cause
should
We're like tincturing them on the little sushis.
sushi.
Yeah, because
that's
it's
good.
it's such a strong flavor. You
Yeah,
don't
you just need a little
much.
bit.
Yeah, it should be like a light, nice little kit.
Can I backtrack? So what is koji? Can you explain that a little
Oh
bit?
yeah. So koji's a fungi that's it's a mold fungi. So instead of like a lot of people think of fungi, like I think mushrooms right now are really popular. So most people like recognize like a button mushroom, right? Like a portobello mushroom, cremini mushroom, white button mushroom. Actually, they're all the same mushroom. So people always think they're different, but that's a fun fact. They're actually all the same mushroom.
What?
Yeah, the white mushroom is the same as the brown mushroom, which is just different color.
What?
Yeah.
So like they're all cats,
Yeah.
just different patterns.
Yeah. And then the baby brown mushrooms, the creminis, they're actually a portobello. It's the same mushroom. It just gets bigger. So,
So the
it's a
portobello, so
portobello.
They just
harvest at a different time.
Yeah, they harvest at a different time. But it's all marketing, right?
You guys were talking about trumpets, blank
Yeah, yeah.
trumpets.
So we use
and
different-
chanterelle. Is that
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the same?
No,
Like,
they're
that's
all-
is that why they're so expensive?
They're in the same family, actually. So black trumpets and chanterelle, based on I can't remember the Latin name, but they're in the same family of mushrooms. You can tell because in the back of the mushroom, you know how like a portobello has gills? They look like fish gills on the bottom. These one have ridges, so they're continuous.
This is on the trumpets, or this is on
Yeah,
the
on
essentials?
both of them. They're in the same family.
Chanterelle.
And now, a quick break. We hope you're enjoying this episode of The Art of Chef. If you're listening to us on your podcast app, we want to invite you to watch these episodes again on our YouTube channel. This is a completely different entertainment experience. Especially during our guest interviews, we love to spice things up with GIFs and other visuals that really bring the episodes to life. So don't be a stranger. Subscribe to The Art of Chef on YouTube and download episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
But we use a lot of wild mushrooms for all of our ferments, like, you know, trumpets, chanterelles, morels. But
And that is not a typical thing for
No,
miso. Okay,
No.
Dude, like you have to understand that this is like that's what they call modern miso.
Yeah.
But like traditional miso, it's just
soybeans and maybe white rice koji. We actually use white rice koji. So, you know, going back a little bit, koji is a fungi that's used to ferment things. So we grow this fungi. It's a mold fungi. You don't see a fruiting body. You see the mold or the mycelium, the underground network of the living organism. So you see it and we grow it on rice, but you can grow it on barley. So in Japan, a lot of misos are made with white koji rice, like, you know, growing the koji, this fungi on rice, or they grow it on barley, or you can also grow it on soybeans.
so the rice is like
It's like the vehicle for the fungi to then ferment
that's how
things.
little I knew about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the rice was a thing, and no.
No.
You want the mold that's on the rice.
You have to grow the koji on the rice or the bean or the barley and then use it to
Then
ferment.
how do you get the koji into like a salt? Like when you guys say koji form.
Yeah, so this salt product actually,
Uh-huh.
we're not really sure if we're gonna. I mean, thing is, people love it, but it's so labor intensive to make, and I don't think some people understand how special it is because we actually take koji, and once we grow it on the rice, we lacto ferment it. So we make a brine with it. You know, so like let's say you grow the koji and you have 100 grams of the koji rice, and then we add 100 grams of water, like equal amounts, and then 10% salt. And so we brine it, you know, and let it ferment for 10 days. And it becomes it's called shiokoji in Japan. So shiokoji is a very popular ingredient. And
Yes.
Hanamuruki
Yes, I've used that, yeah.
sells shiokoji. And so we take that shiokoji, which is the lacto fermented koji water. And then we dump all the salt into it. So we use San Francisco sea salt. It's grown actually in Alameda County, all local stuff. And then what we do is then the salt is sitting in this brine for like 10 days. And then we take it out and then I slowly dehydrate it. And then the salt, yeah. Wow. And then the salt is sticky because there's so many enzymes. So koji as a fungi produces enzymes and it breaks down proteins into amino acids. And it also breaks down starches into sugar. So that's why miso is so umami and sweet, because it breaks down the starch in the rice that we grew the koji on. And it also breaks down the proteins in the beans. But if you add mushrooms, it breaks down the proteins in the mushrooms. So that's why it's a different type of flavor. It's umami, but coming from the mushrooms that's been fermented. Same thing like with the corn miso. Corn has a lot of starch. So that corn miso is actually the sweetest one we make because the starch in the corn turns into sugar. But it tastes like, it's not just sugar, it's like fermented corn sugar, which is why it's so delicious.
It's delicious. And then I tried, you have the mirepoix one.
Yeah, the mirepoix is really good.
And then you have this barbecue one. Tell me the story about this barbecue one.
Barbecue, that was one of my favorites.
Yeah, you did. You did a collab with these guys.
Yeah. So this one here is the Santa Maria Piquinto bean miso. So this one we've fermented for 8 months. This is the first miso we made this year, the first one. And the funny story about this is actually this was 2 years in the making, because I had to R&D a year and a half in advance to make sure we could get the percentage of spice correctly. And it takes 8 months, right? So I first started 2 years ago.
If you fuck it up.
Yeah, you gotta wait.
Taste that don't taste like it.
So it's all about the long game with these, and I think that's also what's kind of fun about it, is because it's kind of teaches you some patience. And
I mean, you gotta imagine, like, that's huge imagination. Like, just 8 months out, you know what? I gotta taste this batch.
Yeah, see how it tastes.
You have to imagine it becoming miso.
Yeah.
Right? I'm
yeah.
This is like, that's why these Michelin star places pay for that.
What did you have to change from like in that period of time?
Yeah.
Like, what did you mess up?
So the first thing I did, the first batch 2 years ago, I actually just made a simple plain one. So super plain.
With the pink.
With just the Santa Maria Piquinto beans. And the Santa Maria Piquinto beans are actually an heirloom bean, and we source them from Rancho Gordo. So Rancho Gordo is a bean kind of supplier based in Napa, and they work with they work with small farms to protect heirloom bean varietals. So now we're actually trying to source all our beans from them, because we think the work they're doing is really important. Because, when you talk about heirloom, vegetables or beans or crops, they're beans or they're things like that have been there for a long period of time, and people have forgotten about them because there's a huge rise of, just industrialization. A lot of these beans, they cost more money to grow. They're more water intensive. Maybe they're a little finicky. They need a certain heat. They need humidity, and it's just not viable to be mass produced. So then what happens to these heirloom varieties is they start to trickle away because it's not profitable for farmers to grow them. So this is where, companies in Rancho Gordo, for example, which we've started, we used to just use all organic beans. And actually now on the label, we can't say all organic anymore, because we're sourcing these heirloom beans, because these small farmers don't have money to get organic certification, even though what they're doing is really great work for the earth. They're protecting these beans for, like family beans, like beans that a lot of generational farmers have grown in their families for years, but then have decided, maybe for the money, I need to grow something else that's a little bit easier to grow, like black beans, for example, just, and what ends up happening is then, you get paid for that type of work.
Right.
But when you have a company like Rancho Gordo, or there's certain companies out there that are trying to buy and pay premium prices for these beans that are long forgotten to support this work that these heirloom, beans can go on.
How did you built the relationship with the bean company? Like,
Okay, so the relationship actually just recently started. So the first thing, this relationship started when we did our collaboration with Slow Food. So Slow Food is an organization, and they have chapters all around the
U.S.?
The U.S. And they have a local chapter to in the East Bay. Actually, the San Francisco one recently shut down because it's all volunteer based. So they consolidated into one in the East Bay. So they reached out to us to do a collaboration with them regarding miso because they heard about our work and they said, oh, you know, what better way? Miso is a slow food, you know, this one 8 months, you know, and then
slow food.
And then they also do a lot of work with heirloom varietals. So they said, wouldn't it be great to do a project on fermenting an heirloom bean? And you know, you guys make miso, so you know, let's do something. So they're the ones that first introduced us to Rancho Gordo, and we got our first bag from them. And as soon as we started doing this first batch, you know, Kevin and I, my partner, we've been talking about switching to Rancho Gordo for a while, and it was perfect timing because we're starting to slowly run out of beans, and we didn't want to reorder the organic varietal anymore. You know, up until this point, like you got to use what you have, right? So we were thinking about it, but we were also kind of worried about the economics because, you know, these beans are 3 times more than organic beans, you know,
Wow.
just, you know, because of the work they are doing with small farmers.
Right.
But we think that's important.
So you feel that heirloom, what they're doing is more important than having the label of organic.
Yeah. I think that organic sometimes to a day-to-day consumer. I mean, I'm a day-to-day consumer. I buy a lot of organic stuff. If I'm going to Costco or something, I buy the organic one, you know, organic sells, but sometimes I think as a producer, sometimes you want to like all the stuff, you know, you were talking about how we source a lot of, you know, maybe ugly produce and actually we used to do that, but we don't do that anymore because, what happened was the ugly produce, as like a CPG product or a consumer product, it's hard because it's not consistent. I can't always source, like if I want to do chanterelle miso again or morel miso, I can't always get ugly stuff, you know? So it's actually better in some ways to pay the farmer a premium for what they can sell to me every year consistently. Because it's important for us as a business to try to source good quality ingredients that support our community, and it's the long game. You know,
So I mean, what you guys are doing are great. It's great. You guys are flipping miso upside its head.
Yeah.
And really mixing in your foraging and your love for mushroom into this. Are you making money? Like, is this working?
It's tough because we all the money we do make, we put into the business. So that's the hard part.
You're putting it into the ingredients.
And putting into the ingredients. So we're actually the research. So this year we're actually trying to figure that out because we used to be in a small. I think this is what always happens when you start a business, right? Like you start the business, and first a lot of people are accidental business owners. I wouldn't say that we are accidental because I actually quit my job before COVID happened.
What were you doing?
I used to work for a real estate company.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I used to sell commercial real estate. And then before that, I was a paralegal.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so
miso must be good money. You had some good jobs. I mean, you quit some good jobs.
Yeah.
What was Kevin doing before that?
Kevin had started his own tech startup with some good friends.
Oh shit!
And then that
I didn't know none of this.
Yeah, and so that didn't really work out for him, unfortunately. But you know, it's tough. A lot of it is timing. There was a company that was very similar to what they were doing. They actually, I think they got bought out by Facebook or something. Like it's like one of those stories where you're like, we're doing the same thing, and then it's just timing. You know, it's all about. I think with anything in life, it's always timing and luck. You know, and before that, he was doing investment banking, so totally different from miso making.
No,
you know?
but that's why I think a lot of times I see I like looking at businesses, especially food businesses, and it's really hard. It's really surprising to see people in the food business that got their shit together, right? so in my mind, like you guys have got to have come from something else, right, to get to be this organized, right? And so listening to your background, I know you're not dummies, right? You're not gonna like. You're gonna be financially solvent, right? You're gonna be, but I think what I like to ask is that, you know, it's challenging, and it's good thing to maybe for the audience, you know, if they can kind of help out in some ways, because I know some of you watching out there is probably like work off of Sandhill or VCs yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So when I hear you have a great line of product, you have like 10 Qs.
Yeah.
Right.
Just here. I could have brought more.
Right. Yeah. And then, so if you have to scale the 10 Qs, right?
That's
hefty, right? So what, like in my mind, I'm just, curious. I know this is like a huge curveball, but it's there like, what is it for you guys next? Is it scaling? Is it getting yourself into more stores? Are you doing more shows? I know you're doing the e-commerce, right? So you're going to do direct ship.
Yeah, we're thinking about that actually this year, because I mentioned we just moved. So we used to be in a small space, and Shannon's been there, and you've been there too.
That's why I met you guys.
Yeah, it was a small commercial kitchen space. It used to be a wing stop. So it was a takeout wing stop. So that's even crazier, because there were 7 businesses in there trying to start their business in this tiny wing stop. And so we used to occupy a small corner of that space. And then we were lucky enough to get kind of like the building storage room area. We were the first tenants to move in, so we called dibs on that. And so that used to be the fermentation room.
Yeah, all the big buckets.
All the big buckets. So we used to be there. We were there for 2 years, and we just moved in like 2 months ago to our new space. But rent has, we're in San Francisco, so rent has gone up 3 times for us. So, it's even like yesterday, like, we were going through our expenses, and we're like, oh my gosh, because everything adds up. But this year we're figuring that out. Like, how can we make this work? And how can we make it work in a way that we're not always, it's just me and Kevin right now. So we have a few friends that come help out, like Shannon, that come help out every once in a while, but it's just us 2. So we do everything. We do the designing of the labels, we make the product, and we're trying to figure out, okay, what is the thing we can scale, So now we're thinking about maybe miso butter could be a good way, because people ask me how I use it. I use it in many ways, but one of them is actually miso butter, so I was thinking that might be a good idea. Or we concentrate on scaling one miso. Like right now, we just made a butterbean miso. So it's soy-free, grain-free, and it sounds really sexy, butterbean miso. You can use in pastry, and it tastes good. It's good for you. So maybe we just make one simple miso, and then we can scale that, and everything else we just do like for direct not drop ship, but direct to consumer release. So we're trying to figure it out. I mean, we don't, like I said, we don't have any background in food, right? Like I used to sell apartment buildings. I used to be on a team. And before that, I was a paralegal, and I worked in criminal defense. So I have no
Where did you guys grow up?
I grew up in San Francisco, and Kevin grew up when he was young. He was born in upstate New York. And
I thought it was just all Texas.
No, all upstate New York.
Oh, wow.
And then he moved to Texas, I think, in middle school.
We'll get him here. We'll get him a mic. He'll sit over in the corner.
He's also busy. He's
working his butt off.
Because I said it's just us 2. So if I go and do something, we like to divide and conquer is what we call it. Because there's only 2 of us, and we work full time. And sometimes when we get invited to do things, sometimes I'm like, do I have to be there? He's like, no, like you don't have to do this. Or sometimes there are things like this, and he's like, well, I don't really need to be there. You can help and spread the word and talk and have a good time. And he was like, I'll sit back in the kitchen and do all the,
it's a lot
I'll
of work.
do the work today.
I mean, like I said, I volunteer. Making miso is not easy. I mean, it's a lot of labor. It's a lot of lifting stuff, mixing stuff.
It's
you put it in these huge buckets.
Let it
ferment.
ferment.
You got to slam it in there. Then you got to pack it. So I mean, it's a very labor intensive, and that's just one part of it.
Yeah, and if it's from Coach Moss,
Yeah,
it's tough. It's not easy.
It's tough. It's tough work. Yeah. So Eleana, you have a Chinese American background, and Kevin has a Japanese American background.
Yeah.
His grandparents, right, started like the first Japanese restaurant in Texas, right?
They started the first Japanese restaurant in Texas. I can't remember what it was called, but it was in Houston, Texas, I believe. And it was the first one, and they had carpenters even come from Japan to build the inside of the restaurant. And they used to have a lot of A-list celebrities come, and this was way back in the day,
This
where
is like 1960 something.
Yeah, like sushi was
1960s. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Wow.
They had a koi fish kind of like area garden, Kevin's never seen it, but his dad fondly tells us memories of like, oh, I remember used to going, play in the koi fish pond and things
You should
like
go
that.
see if it's still there.
I
That would
think
be
it's
a cool trip.
I think there's a
That'd be
shopping
great.
mall on it now.
On it.
On it.
Yeah,
Like it got demolished,
okay.
but it's amazing because it takes a huge risk to move, to go to a place where there's no sushi and be like, we're going to be the ones to do this, to bring
Long
sushi
time in the 60s.
Especially
to
Texas. I mean,
Texas.
that's kind of a pretty radical.
idea.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Then,
Wow.
So I have the ingredients you use on your in your miso. I have a list of your vendors on your website.
Yeah.
Burlap and Barrel.
Burlap and Barrel, yeah, they are direct. They source directly from small farms all over the world. So we use, like, for example, in the porcini salt, we use their purple striped garlic. It's from Vietnam, but it's like they source the best spices from all over the world. And they're actually based in New York. So we used to work with them a lot more, but we still use them. We still love them. I use a lot of Burlap and Barrel at home all the time. But I think because we're trying to be more local these days, we don't use them as much as we used to. But when we started, we were using them all the time for, like we would put like their Urfa chili spice, like peppers into the misos. But now we get a lot of our chili peppers from Tray Vegetables in Santa Rosa. So the flavors are very similar. The idea is still kind of similar, but we've kind of shifted from, okay, let's source from, we've always been sourcing from great companies, but the idea is kind of shifted back to just local now these days because
and then you
it's
have
important,
Far West fungi. I use them as well.
Yeah, Far West fungi. Yeah,
Didn't
fungi.
Kevin used to work for them?
Yeah, Kevin used to work for them. I actually got him the job because I used to work for them too.
What years? So you went from paralegal to banker?
I went from paralegal when I was, maybe 7, 8 years ago. I was a paralegal. And then I did real estate for 5, 6 years. And then after that, I transitioned. When I was still doing real estate, I started working at the farmer's market. So I'd work Monday through Friday at the real estate job. And then I started first with doing one shift, just Saturdays at Far West Fungi, and I would sell mushrooms at the farmers market.
Farmers market for Far West.
For Far West. And then I kind of really liked it, and the reason why I got into it was because I was curious about food, and at that point I was already making misos.
How did you find mushrooms? Like, how did you go from a very different lifestyle all of a sudden you're
to
selling
mushrooms?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, I used to be a little depressed at my desk job.
Yeah.
So on Fridays there was a farmer's market, and so I would walk to the farmer's market and I would see the mushrooms. And this was like, I was already obsessed with mushrooms because I had found, kind of the origin story of all of this was I used to always be upset or depressed at my desk job. But my first desk job back in the Bay Area was in Palo Alto, and I just moved from Tucson, Arizona, where I went to school. I moved to Palo Alto, and I was paying $3,200 in rent, and I was really depressed. I was really depressed, and I thought I could afford it because it was the same job that I was doing in Tucson. I transferred, but I didn't realize how much the taxes were going to be. So after everything was deducted from my paycheck, and it was more than, and then I was like, oh shoot, and now I'm paying $3,200 in rent, which again, I thought I could afford it because I wouldn't have signed a lease if I didn't think I could afford it. But after everything got deducted, I realized I was really like, there's no savings, and I got really depressed. And so the only thing I could do that was free was, I was upset and mentally like unhappy. And then I figured, the only thing I can do for free here is running in the woods. So I'd run in the woods before and after work, clear my mind. And on one of those running trips, I like to see the chanterelles mushrooms found me because they were yellow mushrooms. They look like sunshine.
Pretty obvious, yeah.
They're, I didn't know what they were. They were just so yellow and bright.
This is like out
in
the hills of
Woodside,
Palo- okay.
in Woodside,
Yeah,
in
okay.
Woodside, next to the oak trees. And so I found those mushrooms and I brought them home, realized they were edible. And
That's
then,
a big leap going from a run to all of a sudden you see colorful mushrooms and you're collecting.
It was just weird.
That's pretty cool.
So that's how it kind of like all started. So then that was in Palo Alto, and then that got me kind of started on my journey of finding mushrooms, preserving things, learning how to do things. And then after that, I transferred to Oakland office, and I was still, you know, a little unhappy at work, but not as depressed I was in Palo Alto, because at that point I moved back in with my parents to save a little bit of money. So that helped a lot. But there used to be a farmer's market there. So I used to go on Fridays on my lunch break and I'd look at the mushrooms. And one of those days, one of the guys that was selling was like, hey, we're actually hiring. Like, you come here every Friday. Like, you want to just get paid to do that? So I was like, huh. And I was like, well, I work Monday to Friday. So you got a shift for Saturday? He was like, yeah, we have shifts. So that's when I picked up Saturday. And then pretty soon I picked up Sunday. And then fast track 6 months later, I quit my desk job and I started working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for Far West. I'm just doing markets. And then that way I had some pocket money. You know, I was working 3 days of side hustle, but then I could focus on my full-time hustle, which was going to be this business. So that's kind of like how it all.
And this also like the pandemic, like 2020.
I was working for Far West before the pandemic, but Kevin started working for them during the pandemic because they needed some more help. Their business, Far West, really, I think it grew a lot during the pandemic because people were cooking more. I think a lot of people were interested in top quality ingredients. So we actually, you know, so we source a lot of our mushrooms from Far West fungi, like the black trumpets, chanterelles, morels, everything that we make. It usually always starts off with us picking a little bit, like we have a lot, and then we're like, oh, let's do something. But we never pick enough for 400 pounds. So you need a supplement.
How do you find these guys? How do you find like, so Far West, you obviously kind of found them in the farmer, but how do you find the Rancho Gordo? Like, how do you find these really good farmers? And
like the Rancho Gordo, I've had Rancho Gordo beans for the last 5 or 6 years. Like, people used to gift them to me. Like, it's just like a fancy, like, you know, when you really get into food, you just want the best of the best.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
Eleana, for coming on to the show.
high five, way to kill it
Thank you,
today.
Shannon,
Yeah,
for bringing
tough, baby.
Eleana.
I had a tough
You did a
job
good
today.
job. Yeah. We'll train tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll
but
train
guys,
tomorrow.
if you guys need to get a hold of Shared Culture, hit Eleana up on IG.
Yep. It's just me on the Instagram.
And then Shannon, Shasa Wasabi on IG. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
I hope to see you again. We'll continue this conversation.
Yeah,
but today,
part 2.
Yeah, part 2. Yeah, but today, everybody's got to go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for joining us today. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, it only takes a moment to post a positive rating and review. Your support allows us to grow the community and reach more extraordinary people just like you. And come check out the Art of Chef YouTube channel on your next lunch break. We'd love to see you there. Thanks again for listening. See you in the next episode.